while we do understand that achieving this equality at sea will take efforts at every level, as well as at the global level in the maritime industry, even the IMO actually makes it a priority. But at the same time, we've noticed that there are very slowly and steadily growing number of young women who have been enthusiastically signing up for seafaring careers, and they want to take up this opportunity as much as possible, which is why we took the opportunity to talk to the young cadets of today to ask them what they would like the maritime industry of the futures to look like. So let's find that out in the form of the video. Here we go.
We had this event called the Family Day, and I had gone with my family to sail on a ship, and over there I really found that environment really friendly, and it was like I belong here. I had that sense of belonging, and that's why I really wanted to pursue maritime studies.
The inspiration for taking up this career was definitely Radhika Menon to become the first captain in the entire seafaring industry.
Actually, it's my father, who have been a captain since 10 years, and I have sailed for 3 years on his ship. And it was a great experience to be a mini captain, to be honest.
We need to be multitasker. We need to manage our studies, we need to manage our work, we need to manage our time as well as our family when we are on board. So all these skills we need to be a good example on board.
Most of my seniors are on board, and from them I heard like when a job comes like repairing a machinery or when an engine breakdown happens, something like that, many are preferring to that a boy should do a work than a girl. By seeing them physically, they are thinking like a woman can't do a work, and I need that to be stopped. Like they should see how a woman works, and then only they should determine whether she is capable for that or not.
I feel like till today, a lot of women, they're not aware about that they have a career, and, they can have a good career in Merchant Navy.
That's true, because young women like these, in fact, are the future of seafaring, and it is up to us, the people who are inside the room, such as today, in order to give them that stepping stones to thriving careers at the sea. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, as you can notice, we are setting the stage again. It's time for another very, very important discussion. And this is where I'd like to invite some of the amazing leaders here on stage. We're talking all about setting goals for women inclusion towards industry success. And today, I'm actually joined by people who have rich experience in bringing out real transformation in the diversity and inclusion practices of their organizations and in the way they work as leaders. So first up, I'd like to please invite on stage Ms. Shalini Natraj, the Global Head of HR Delivery and Employee Experience at AP Moller Maersk. She holds decades of experience in various HR domains influencing businesses, or for that matter, people and cultures, and is also currently responsible for evaluating the end-to-end career journey of all the employees globally at Maersk. So thank you so much for joining us. That being said, it's time for me to invite our next speaker, the first woman chief of flight safety in India and the first woman head of quality management systems in an airline in India. She's also currently a group chief and executive director at Air India, where she began her career as the organization's first woman pilot. Ladies and gentlemen, we have with us none other than Dr. Harpreet A.D. Singh. Our next speaker, who needs no introduction, but we all know that she's the first woman to hold that role that I'm about to talk about, and I'm guessing it's going to be up on the screen as well. But she's someone who has had the pivotal role in steering the organization through uncertainties and through crisis, and also to sustained profitability. And under her leadership, the SCI launched the first vessel with all women officers on board. Ladies and gentlemen, may I please humbly invite on stage none other than H.K. Joshi, former chairperson and managing director of the Shipping Corporation of India Limited. And with that, let me also invite our final speaker, who is a leader in his own right, because currently he's also leading all the diverse aspects of the marine HR, from crew management to recruitment to training, payroll, building organizational culture, and driving diversity and inclusion at Maersk. We have with us, once again, Mr. Niels Bruce. And there's an extra additional name up there on the screen. That's because I have the absolute honor of moderating this phenomenal discussion, and I'm more than delighted to join our leaders here on stage. So let me just move myself from the lectern to the chair in a second. Check. All right. Firstly, thank you so much. I've been eagerly looking forward to this panel. Thank you very much for joining us this evening. One thing I definitely want to share with our members of the audience is that my father, in fact, is a naval officer. And pretty much early in my life, I also shared my ambition saying, Dad, I would love to join the Navy. I would love to be at the sea. And that's when he reminded me that there was no policy for women at sea. So then I said, hey, what's the use if I can't sail that ship to the sea? What am I doing here? That's when I realized if I can't anchor the ship, let me at least anchor a show. Let me at least do that, right? So that being said, that's why I think I become very passionate whenever we have discussions, and which is why I want to thank Captain Karan again for inviting me to host this show. That being said, let me now just shift the gears here, because today's discussion, this very discussion that we're talking about the fact that when we look at the shipping industry, we're talking about how the life on board is for women per se. So what are the career paths for them? What really is happening, and how can we actually create a necessary conversation and a necessary scenario for them to feel safe, or for that matter, for them to be saying that, hey, you know what, this shouldn't even be a matter of doubt. This is who I want to be. This is what I want to do. So what are the next steps? So what we're going to do is take forward their stories, their experiences, and we're going to put it in 3 quick segments. We're going to talk about culture inclusion for women at workforce. We're also going to talk about establishing partnerships and collaborations, and we're also going to focus on leadership development. So what I'm about to do is, let me probably start from that end of the spectrum. I'm going to ask you, Mr. Bruce, if you could probably tell us, we've been gathering a lot of insights today, but how is the industry actually fostering a culture of diversity and inclusion in order to promote that success for women, especially on board vessels? So yes, if you could please share your insights.
Thank you very much. I think the starting point is these conversations. That's where the culture change starts. But we're not changing the culture as of now. We're creating awareness. We really have a long way to go before the culture is truly changed. But it starts with this. It starts with the conversations. It starts with the initiatives we see from governments, from companies, all the way up to IMO level in our maritime industry. The shift is coming. The tide is changing. But we cannot really shift focus. We cannot let off the foot from the gas pedal here. And I think what is important to remember is that this change needs to come from people like me, like the majority of the people in this room. We need to support this culture transformation. And it is a transformation, and a transformation takes years and years. And we need to be consistent. But without us, the change is never going to happen. We need to burst our bubble, and we need to start looking forward, and we need to change our perspectives. And we need to be role models, like we heard the DG Shipping talk about, the Chief Surveyor talk about. That's what we need to see from everybody across our industry.
I think that's a wonderful takeaway for us when you actually share very realistically that we can't change the culture first. We first have to create that awareness. And in the process is when everybody comes on board, and that's when we see that change in culture. So with that, let me now move forward. And my next question is for Dr. Harpreet Singh. And we do know that while we're talking about the shipping fraternity, specifically the maritime industry, we've seen that change happen, especially in your industry. But in your professional journey, while you've experienced this transformation across, wherein there were hardly any women initially and in your industry, and now there are so many women pilots. We hear of them. We see their Instagram reels where they're actually motivating us. So what do you think literally enabled this transformation? Because we would love to learn from your industry as an example. So what really enabled the transformation?
Thank you, Kavya, and hello, everyone. Yeah, that's a very good question. In fact, I was just wondering about it while this session was on. Aviation actually started after shipping. Actually, we learned how to navigate from the captains of the ships. We learned what is starboard and port from the sea world. But when I was reflecting on it, aviation is a jet starter, right? It's got heavy thrust, and we take off and land in shorter durations than the ship. And probably, as far as women empowerment goes, I think we've gone faster ahead, although we started later. But it was not an easy journey. Let me tell you, when I started flying in 1985, 1986, I wanted to be a pilot. I wanted to join the Indian Air Force. It was not permitted at that time. So I took the next best opportunity because my father was in the Indian Air Force and very influencing man, very strong. My daughter can do anything, and I rose in that kind of a family. The next best choice, I joined the NCC. And the National Cadet Corps taught me so much. And we are talking about the lady our chief guest showed with those spots on the head. I remember working shoulder to shoulder with the young boys, doing the drills, doing the RD camp. And at that time, I was the first woman who commanded the Guard of Honor for the Prime Minister. And I remember, even then, it is the spirit that a woman can do it, right? It is that. And carrying those spots, living like a laborer in the Indo-Canadian Youth Exchange Program of the NCC, sleeping on rocks, building homes for Harijans, this is what makes the character that you are. So for me, I feel catch them young. When they're 15, 16, 17, is the time you get the best out of these young boys and girls. And also it starts at home. We have subtle biases even today with our parents. However well-meaning they are, they create these subtle differences which doesn't allow sometimes the girls to come forward, which is very important. Coming back to aviation, in those times when I remember I was wanting to be a pilot and I went to Hisar, I started in Hyderabad, then because it was a controlled aerodrome, I went to Hisar. They told me there's no washroom for women. How are you going to manage? I said, I'll manage. You are going to be 14 kilometers away. There is nothing on the side. If your transportation fails, you have to come alone. I said, I'll manage. My father stood by me. I took a house on rent. I was all alone in a bedroom of, 3-bedroom apartment. I used to drive a moped. And I used to chant my prayers along in my mind because I was highly spiritually inclined. I said, just have faith in the Almighty, have faith in yourself. Nothing can stop you. And I did my private pilot license, went to the Indira Gandhi Academy, got my commercial pilot license with a PM scholarship because I'd traveled abroad and represented the country. But what has happened is this led to a lot of other women moving on. And prior to me, let me acknowledge with a lot of gratitude Captain Saudamini Deshmukh, who had joined the Indian Airlines then and was a great motivator. There was a group of 3-4 of us in 1967, I was much younger then, who started something known as a charitable social organization called Indian Women Pilots Association. It was a dream. And when we talk about social enablers, this was the association which is doing what I could hear all of you talking about. This is what they did for the last 55 years. And in 2017, when I wrote to the Prime Minister of India and when I wrote to the Civil Aviation Minister that India has the highest percentage of women pilots in the world, nobody believed me. Because we had been consistently working on data, on mentorship, going home to home, encouraging women because we believed in it. And finally, when they started double-checking, today the whole world talks about it, which is great. But I acknowledge with gratitude the founders of IWPA who really worked hard to make this happen. And it is we, the women, who have to make it happen, running shoulder to shoulder with the men. It's the wonderful fathers, the wonderful bosses, brothers, who actually supported us in it. And for me, I'm sorry, I'm just taking 30 seconds more. Where the spirituality part really helps is when you go away from these borders of nationality, seas are open and vast, it's the one universal consciousness. When you go into the sky, you experience the glory of the earth, right? You remove these borders of these layers of dust that are settling on your soul. When you say, I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm a this religion, I'm a that person, I'm a this person. When you start removing all those boundaries, you become just a soul. And when you're that, you don't discriminate because there's purity. There's purity of thought, purity of action, the true karma yogis that we speak about. That's how you get India shining. And today, it's not a small feat, let me tell you, to be not only the highest, but double the second highest of a developed nation, to have not just one lady who's the president of India or one lady who's the finance minister, but the large volume of women who are much higher. And that is the spirit of aviation, that is the true spirit of India. Thank you.
You know, there is such passion in what you shared, and I think you just managed to, sort of transcend that across all of our members of the audience. All that you shared as well, with regard to how your childhood is, how everything that's happening, whether it's school, through activities such as NCC, and all of these become, in a way, the stepping stones for you to decide, hey, this is who I want to be. So it's really important that catch them young, as you had put it. And I'm going to take that passion forward. I'm going to take that dynamic voice forward. And let me now also move to another dynamic voice who's present here inside the hall, H.K. Joshi ma'am. I must admit one thing for sure is that every time I've been part of any logistics conference, they've always mentioned you with such high regard. And that is not just because of the leader that you are. They often say that a leader knows the way, goes the way, but also shows the way. And you have done that for so many women out there, even in the maritime industry. So my question to you is, I know that you do believe in women's inclusion because you've already shown that to us, as well as the representation. But when we're talking about the overall success of the entire industry, how crucial has it become today, as of now? How crucial has it become that women literally be part of this narrative in order to see that success in the industry?
So Kavya, the maritime industry, I think, has been trailing like Dr. Harpreet has just brought out, both in terms of technology as well as in terms of inclusion. And but my belief is that probably it's going to be the story of the turtle who's going to overtake the hare very soon. So it's maybe they've been trailing, but the consciousness and the awareness which is hitting the maritime industry today, the very fact that we have so many conferences, what Mr. Bruce talked about, that we have to start acknowledging it. I think we've become conscious of the fact, we are talking about the fact, so we are aware. So the level of awareness in the industry is fairly high. And once you're talking about it, you're conscious about it, you are aware, then the next step is to take action. So I'm very confident that the action is going to happen in the industry, and it's going to happen very fast. And I am optimistic enough to say that we are going to surpass all the industries, in all other industries, in terms of inclusion and women diversity. What's important is that the industry probably we can stop talking about gender equality and we start talking about intellectual diversity. Because I think what women bring is intellectually a diverse view, and that is the strength. So while we are still talking about gender, I think we are bringing in the fact we are still conscious that there is a gender. So we need to get over this gender issue and talk about intellectual diversity. I think we'll be making a very big leap.
That is a term for me to learn as well, ma'am, as you mentioned. Intellectual diversity, what they can bring to table more than, we often think when we talk about gender diversity, okay, what about the muscles? No, it's not that yet. We're talking about the intellectual diversity. I think that is one key takeaway for all of us. With that, let me now come to Shalini, because Shalini, we do understand that you are responsible, in terms of ensuring that whatever the employees at Maersk, whatever they do, how do you ensure that they become the leaders, through your contribution, through the way you make decisions? So what are the steps that are actually being taken, in order to ensure equal opportunities for women, whether it's in terms of promotions or whether it's in terms of leadership roles? Because we talk about gender equality, but the equity part, most of the time in most of the industries, goes missing. So what do you think are the steps that are being taken in order to ensure this? If you could share that.
Can I first ask a question to Karan? Karan, is there an age criteria to join the academy, or can I join tomorrow? I'm like so inspired, and Garima, I want to be in your class and be your best friend. But that's the thing. It's about acknowledging something that doesn't exist and for you to say, I aspire to be something. And I feel like everything starts there, Kavya. And maybe I can talk a little bit about Maersk itself. And I feel like all successes come from the ecosystem. And if the ecosystem doesn't support you, then there is a problem, even if I'm really confident, even if I think my parents are going to support me something. I think we work in an ecosystem that's filled with policies, people, processes, and if that doesn't support the ambitions we have, then it doesn't matter what I want to do. I don't think I'll be successful. So the biggest thing that we're doing at Maersk and many other good companies is to start from acknowledging that there is a gap. Because sometimes you work in really good companies and we believe we're doing everything right. So it hurts to say, no, I don't think we're being fair. I don't think we are free of bias. And to acknowledge that was the first big step that we have taken. Taken a little too late, but taken as an industry, as an organization. And then you say, now that when you look at the life cycle of an employee, man or woman, what are some things that influences somebody's career and decisions? And where is the bias and what does bias look like? And so there's been a big conversation at Maersk from starting from the hiring process and what kind of bias exists to promotions, and data tells us that there is bias. There's bias even from women. When I'm interviewing in an interview and there is a woman, the questions I ask and the expectation from that is different because we're all, we've been doing this for so long. I think it's very, very unconscious. So maybe I'll go specific to the questions that you're asking. In an interview, we're looking at how can we make it completely unbiased. So how do we ensure that the people who are interviewing are free of bias, which we will never be. So we acknowledge that we have a bias and we know what that bias is. And then we ensure that as we get into development, into promotions, that we know that there is a gap. And this is not about promoting women because there are women, right? I've sometimes been given a position and then said, hey, we have a diversity opening, we want to hire you. And I'm like, no, I don't want to get hired because I'm a woman. I want to get hired because I deserve that position. So we're acknowledging clearly that there is a skill set, a capability that a woman brings to the table that's important. We work in a global organization catering to global customers, and we need diversity there. So when we look at development and promotion, there is a separate way of looking at how can we support women, and lots of programs for that. But then there's also making women successful. We hire them, and we've also seen that we've failed in making them successful. We hire them because they're different. We want them to become the same after. So acknowledging that the difference we hire them for is what we celebrate after. I think that makes up the culture and the ecosystem that supports women to be successful at Maersk.
Lovely, lovely indeed. The entire bit where you said, acknowledging where you're not doing it right, but, making it aware that, hey, why not we take this step? That was like a hashtag no filtered conversation. Thank you. We really needed that. Thank you so much. And I'm going to say, Shalini, +1 in case if the age gap can be, sort of modified there, because Garima has also inspired me this evening. Thank you. And Dr. Harpreet, you as well. I'm going to now bring the conversation back to Mr. Bruce. Let me come back to you again, because while we've been talking about all that's happening around us, the next question, of course, is what are the strategies, for that matter, that should be applied if we are talking about this change? We've been talking about it, but now we can see that little bit of change, but there are some more strategies that we're eagerly looking forward to, and so that we can ensure that the opportunities are there for women seafarers as well. So what are the strategies that you can share with us?
I think, first of all, it's a humbling sitting with such amazing trailblazers here who has really led the way in different industries, so amazing. But the strategies need to start with recognizing the starting point. And to Shalini's point, if we don't realize where we are, if we pay lip service, if we pretend, we're not going to move. So really, find out what the starting point is. And I have to admit personally, the last 2 years, I really had a few wake-up calls, recognizing that the world as I thought I knew it didn't exist. It simply wasn't the reality. So my perception of reality was not the reality, in particular for the women colleagues that we already had in our care. And that was super disturbing, honestly. It really made me totally shift my perspective and my understanding of this. So I would really say strategy starts with understanding the starting point. But we also have to recognize that a vision without action is just a dream. So I really think it's time to stop dreaming and start moving. And that needs to start with all of us in this room. And again, it's across all bodies that are working in the maritime industry. We need to see this happening. And I think the airline industry in India has shown that it is absolutely doable. But it needs to have a starting point in creating a safe work environment. We cannot just recruit blindly and send women out if we don't believe that it is a safe work environment. So that needs to be the starting point. And we're working hard on establishing this. And that also requires for our leaders on board to take up the challenge. Because we can do as much as we can from the shore side, but it's on board that the change happens. So really working with the leaders, it's through them the change has to happen. And we are investing heavily in actually educating our leaders to handle this change.
Absolutely true indeed, Mr. Bruce, because as you had said, even the leaders who are seated over here, they were also inspired by someone, and they are now paving the way for probably, and I guess next probably I'll get to moderate a discussion with Garimanik, in future. So this is how the discussion goes forward, and as you had mentioned, even if we draw the flow chart of strategies, it all starts with a starting point, understanding and acknowledging. So it all starts right there, and that brings us to a conversation like this today, for that matter. Superb. With that, I'm going to quickly come to Dr. Harpreet Singh again, because while we spoke about the fact that, yes, in the aviation sector, the opportunities are many, what were the hurdles? You did speak from your own journey, from your own examples, but what really has been the biggest hurdle in order to create that, change, and, what really would be important to support women pilots? So, one, what were the hurdles? And what really is important, to take that journey for women pilots forward? Something that you could share with us.
So to answer your first question, what were the hurdles, was just the bias in the mind, nothing more. It was just that it's a huge aircraft with 200 lives on it. How can we trust a woman to do this job? There was also a little bit of a bias that as if you need a lot of physical strength and you need, what if you have to divert? What if something goes wrong? How would a woman will start crying and she's not emotionally strong? And these are all these little biases. So it takes you time. Look, you have to give the men also some time to digest that you can do it equally, if not better. So you have to give them that time to digest it. And if you see over a period of time, the data will show that you're equally good, you can easily do it, and that's what makes you stronger and stronger. And at every level, it's not just becoming the pilot, like it's becoming an AME in the engineering or an air traffic controller. I mean, we have various challenging jobs. But when we look at the strategy forward, one thing that we have to be very careful with women empowerment is that don't put the woman on a pedestal. She has to be treated equally. The moment you start putting the woman on a pedestal, there's something that shifts in the dynamics, and the men stop supporting. And you also have a lot of women who need to be very conscious of the fact that if you have struggled and got up there, it doesn't mean everybody has to struggle like you, because you had it really tough. But it is your social service, it is your giving back that you have to make at least 100 more shine more than you. And that is the true energy which is required. Because you can't just keep going back historically and saying, oh, I did this, and see, you got it so easy. Times are different. Times are changing. Today, everything is on iPad. Everything is this. So, you have to grow with the system. You have to realize today's environment. If you want more and more women into the system, you have to get out of the biases. And even some of the women, a lot of pictures, I've myself done it because I know we used to encourage all women flights all around the world. We have so many world records. And I myself was on a leadership role on many of these flights, and they encouraged thousands of other girls to apply. So it's a brilliant thing. But after a point, you have to realize when to taper it off, when to advertise it to a point that it doesn't become a disabler, like it enables the women, but the ecosystem is getting a little uncomfortable. You're talking of equality, but every time it's the woman. So don't overdo it. What I feel is in today's time, the strategy to take it forward is never overdo something into a level which it becomes counterproductive. So make it encouraging, catch the youth, identify, like you rightly said, you're an HR person, identify the men and women both who really want to give back to society, who want to give back to the company. Because many men and women sit in their high horse, I did this and I did that. That ego is so high. And they're not really enabling more women to come. They want to sit as I'm the first and I'm the best and nobody else should beat my record. Whereas the best record is if you can groom those people to beat your own record. That is what we want, the strategy to move forward. You cannot be living in this world of, because I have so many firsts to my credit, but I say I want hundreds of other women to beat my record. Then I'll feel satisfied. And I think that's the energy that takes you forward. Thank you.
I would love to take that as a published quote, that the best record is if you can inspire the others to break your record. Thank you so much for that. And this bias in the mind, which you rightfully shared, it's so true. It is always there across. Even I remember when I joined electrical engineering as a stream, I remember there were only 4 girls in the mechanical engineering stream, and these 4 girls actually decided saying, I want to be a mechanical engineer. And everybody else would be like, but why mechanical? Because yaar haath use karna padega. Who says? As ma'am said, intellectual diversity, that's something we definitely bring in. And those 4 girls could inspire another 8. 8 could inspire 16. It is how it happens. So wonderful, wonderful. I'm also being a little conscious about the time, so let me again come to you, ma'am, H.K. Joshi, ma'am. This is where I want to understand that you've literally seen it all, in your industry. You've seen the changes also happen. But what steps today, as of today, what steps from an organizational perspective can be taken in order to create an environment that is actually inclusive for all the women?
I think this has already been talked about. Number one, there has to be no bias at all. It's very important that equal opportunities are given. Mostly what we see is when there is an opportunity and a single person is required, subconscious bias will always come in. Conscious bias is there, but there is a whole lot of subconscious bias. There's a mindset. Now that mindset needs to change. And I think it is gradually changing, and that's why I talked about that I would like to rephrase and recoin not gender diversity, but intellectual diversity, because the instant you realize that what you are bringing to the table is a diverse skill set, a different intellectual perspective, there will be takers for you. But so long as you keep driving the fact that you are just trying to bring in gender equality, so then the whole focus is again going on to the gender. But what's very important is that when organizations are hiring, they also need to realize that you are not hiring a gender. You are hiring a brain. You are hiring an intellect. The day you start realizing that you are not hiring a gender, I think the change will come. And that's what is needed in every organization.
I think this is a conversation that has to reach out to the other industries as well, because it's just getting so inspiring. It's brimming with inspiration, and it's brimming with such realistic points. That leaves me with a final question. And Shalini, this one's for you, because while you have been, sort of employing people at Maersk, and you've been seeing this and having different strategies, what have been your learnings from the other industries, when it comes to leveraging these projects, or for that matter, hiring people? Any learnings from the other industries?
And in the interest of time, I'll make it quick. The first thing started with, it's so difficult for women to do this, so maybe we'll try doing something else, right? Like, that's where it all starts, right? You stereotype it, you say, these are the jobs for men, these are the jobs for women. And then you see industries like airline that's gone and broken all of it. I think the first thing is to say, okay, I'm not going to say it's because of the gender that people can do some jobs. It's because of the brain. It's because of the capability. The minute you open up the mind, then the world is out there for you to learn from. So I think, and I won't take too many examples, but I think the biggest one, including technology, right? There is a huge dearth of capability in the market, but we still go and hire engineers who are men because we believe men have done it for a longer time, so they're going to be smart. And then what happens? These men go and create ChatGPT and generative AI, and stuff that comes out of it is completely biased because there is a certain set of people who believe certain things, have inputted that data, and then what comes out of it is the same bias. So I really believe if we can open up as a world, as organizations, to say, I don't really care about the gender, we figure out what assessments we need to have, we figure out what is needed, and then whoever walks in, the right person, will get that role. So then every industry should try it, and there should be no limitations to it. That's what I would say.
Kavya, I'll just like to add, because we've just agreed on the fact that it's not the gender. So I think we are, as women leaders ourselves, we are prophesizing that it is merit that is important. And I think even Garima as a young cadet talked about it. So women are not looking for any preferential treatment or any special considerations. I'm sure women today are competent enough to be successful on their own merit. And merit should only prevail. That's
Ladies and gentlemen, first up, can we please have a huge and the loudest round of applause for my fabulous, fabulous speakers, because today you managed to open a Pandora's box of insights for all of us, something that we were eagerly looking forward to hear, something that I managed to learn myself. Thank you so much for joining us. And if I could please request you to join me for a group photograph. And I hope all of you are tweeting about all these insights using the hashtag #EqualAtSea, because I truly am.